Live from the City of Angels here on Sunday morning, you are watching Breaking Box Office, and I would suggest to you that The Fall Guy bombed. This is as disappointing as it gets for Universal. I mean, hugely disappointing is being kind here. This is a film that should be 40 million plus when you look at Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt coming off their two biggest box office smashes in Barbie and Oppenheimer. And this film opens to, are you ready for the number? $28.5 million. Here's the email directly from Universal. As you see, the total domestic cum at this moment here on Sunday morning, 28.5 million. Here, let's break down the demographics because that's where we're going to start, and then we're going to go to the global and look at those numbers. First off, male. 54% of the people who saw this film were male, and 71% of the audience was 25 plus. We talked about this on Friday night, how big it was for this film to really not be even being paid attention to by Gen Z. They didn't even care about this movie. And you look at it, 71% of the audience, 25 plus. And I saw that on my screening, the early screening that we had in Burbank. It was an older crowd. Look at the demos, 6%, 13 to 17. 23%, 18 to 24, 23, 25 to 34, and then 49% of the audience is 35 plus. So this definitely fell into the Gen X wheelhouse, but the problem is that my generation doesn't run out to the theaters like they used to. Certainly not when we were kids, when movies were everything. And remember, Seinfeld said that movies are losing their cultural significance. I would suggest that that is the case. We're seeing that this weekend. Ryan Gosling, is he a movie star? In that, does he put butts in seats? That is going to be our big topic tonight, really breaking down what happened here. Aside from the demos we're looking at here, there's so many fascinating aspects to this film, disappointing / bombing, that we must discuss. Let's go over demographics. Caucasian, 53%, Hispanic, 24%, African-American, 8%, Asian, 10%, and other is 5%. So largely white crowd on this. We go to the international numbers. It's the number one film internationally. But guys, remember, this is also really hugely damaging to theatricals. You look at AMC, Regal, Cinemark, everybody overseas. They need something to kick the summer off that has some juice that gets us to a 75 million plus opening. That's what the first film out of the gate, and now the early May sets the summer tone. We're off to a bad start, obviously. The film that's going to clean up this summer, there's one for certain, and you guys know it's Deadpool Wolverine. Beyond that, probably Twisters, and then we're kind of in trouble. We're going to talk about Garfield movie. It did debut overseas. That looks encouraging. And there is If that I think is going to outperform. But when you look at this summer versus last summer, it's not going to be good. Back to The Fall Guy. You look at this, it says it grossed 25.4 million across international. International cum is 36.9. Why is it higher? Because it debuted last weekend. If you remember, we discussed it made about 11 million last weekend overseas. This is performing in line with Bullet Train and Above the Lost City at the same point, but this is a lower opening than the Lost City stateside. Lost City 30.5. This is 28.5. Okay? So you look at this and you're really in big trouble, because if you look at the long-range forecast for this film with the A- cinema score and word of mouth that's going south fast, this is going as badly as possible for Universal for a film that costs $125 million plus without the marketing. Remember, that costs a ton of money. All the money they spent on promotional for this film, starting it off, as we talked about, one of the biggest mistakes they made, Universal, was debuting this at South by Southwest, because that was way too soon. 2 months ago. You do not want to start your buzz, and it was glowing out of South by Southwest. Remember, everybody saying, oh, this movie's the best thing ever. This is a love letter to, oh, shit. How many times have we heard that over the past several months, and certainly over the last several days? But the problem is then you have 2 months of stagnation, And then finally, the film drops, and it's kind of old news to a lot of people. The shills out there were talking about this 2 months ago. This was a big time error by Universal. We discussed it Friday night that this was handled as poorly as possible when it comes to the rollout. We'll make it our big topic tonight on MMT. What exactly happened? The autopsy of the Fall Guy. How about this? When you look at horror, there's too many horror films. You want proof? Tarot goes down with just $6.5 million this weekend. When you look at the marketplace, we've had so many over the past several weeks. I love horror. I know you likely like horror as well. The problem is that when you give people a new horror film every single weekend, they start to blend together and then they all suffer. And I haven't seen Tarot. Might see it today. I understand it's not great. But the point is, it doesn't matter when you start loading generic product into the marketplace. It's going to oversaturate it, as we're seeing, and then the next film is going to suffer, and the next one out is going to be The Strangers, which looks like a shot-for-shot remake, essentially, of the first. Why do we even need that movie? So that film is probably in trouble as well. Let's talk about Challengers, a film that only dropped 49% in its second weekend. Is that I'd rather see it drop, 35, 40%, but it's, under 50. How about that? We'll spin it like the studios do. Right now, worldwide, the total was $52.2 million. It's open virtually everywhere but Japan. You can see the email here from Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is handling this film overseas while Amazon MGM has the domestic cash. Some of the results here talks about it's tracking ahead of A Haunting in Venice, No Hard Feelings, Past Lives, Air, Licorice Pizza. It's doing better than a lot of these films. And I think ultimately, for a film like Challengers to even be sitting at $52 million worldwide, I understand the budget was $50 million, but guys, the marketplace is in flux. We are in trouble. No question. Again, something we'll discuss tonight. Now we have tent poles all about the big 4 quad movies, and anything that doesn't fit into that criteria is going to suffer. And Challengers is not a 4 quad tent pole. Therefore, at $52 million, I'm not going to cry about that number. Let's discuss Garfield, because I'll tell you, when you look at it, it's surprisingly doing well for the first weekend, $22 million on only 35% of the international markets. So that is very encouraging. 76% higher than DC League of Super Pets, 41% higher than Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, on par with Secret Life of Pets 2. We all know that was a big hit. That's really popular with the kiddos. So Garfield could end up being a film that comes in here and surprises and helps bolster box office. We're going to need those films this summer. There's no Barbie, no Oppenheimer. You didn't have a Mission Impossible like we had last year. So many films in a row. Transformers outperformed. This year, we're really in trouble. We need a Garfield to come in. We need an If to, outperform to help this market out. Something to help this market this weekend was The Phantom Menace. Disney brings it back out, 25th anniversary. And look, its global number was very impressive. When you pull this thing up, 14 million plus on the international plus domestic, 14.5 for the May the 4th, 25th anniversary of The Phantom Menace. One of the best re-releases that we've seen of late, and it proves the Star Wars brand is not going away. Even if I care less about it than a lot of people at this point, it still is one of the biggest franchises in movies if Disney decides to get it right whenever they revisit Star Wars in a new episode for us, but very encouraging. Let's do top 10 if I even have it. Do I have the top 10 box office? I don't believe I have the email yet, but right now we know Fall Guy is at $28.5 million. Hugely disappointing. Here it is. I've got it. Let's pop it up. I do have the top 10. Boom. Here we go. Bang. And there it is. Okay, let's go over it. Fall Guy, 28.5, should be 40. Huge disappointment for Universal. And then we have number 2 was Phantom Menace, right? With $8 million here in its re-release. Challengers, $7.6 million in third, down 49%. We go to Tarot at 6.5 at number 4, and that is not good. I would argue a bomb right at that point. Godzilla and Kong, the new Empire. I do have an update on that if I can find it. Let's see. Our number on that is over 500, nearly 550 million. Dune is up to 708 million worldwide. So that is very successful. Obviously, for that film, we're getting Dune Messiah. Duh. Let's go back to the top 10 and go to Civil War, down another 48%. It now stands at $62 million, one of A24's biggest hits ever. Unsung Hero, a film that I did not hate, down 61%, though. That did not hold well in its second weekend, $13 million on that faith-based film. Kung Fu Panda 4 is up to 188 stateside. I think it's 400 total global. We're getting a Kung Fu Panda 5. Abigail is at only $22.8 million domestic. Again, another horror film that oversaturated that market. And Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is at 109. Doubtful that we will ever get another Ghostbusters movie. Couple comments, and then we will get out of here on this Sunday morning. Thanks for being here, Breaking Box Office. Tonight is going to be fun. Tonight's going to be discussing really what went wrong with The Fall Guy, and there's so many things. Again, it doesn't just point to Gosling, or I don't even think at all it points to Blunt. I don't think Blunt's really a draw. When you look at the release of this film, that's an aspect. The fact that people, the young crowd, was not into it, as we discussed on the top of the screen when you look at the numbers, the demos, and then also the fact that theatrical's in trouble when it comes to films that are not tent poles. All of that tonight. Robert Steven, thank you for the super chat. Enjoyed the film. 15 minutes could be cut. Completely agree. In fact, this film would be much stronger at minus 20 minutes, maybe even minus 25. Again, I looked at my watch at about 1:32, which is the runtime that everybody loves, right? The recent Gallup poll says 92 minutes is perfect. That's when I looked and I go, this movie should be wrapping, and it went on for another 35 minutes. David Leitch has not figured out how to self-censor his edit. He's got to start editing himself. He cannot just put everything he shot into the movie. He's done it again. And I'll tell you, it really falls back to, we'll discuss this tonight, Universal. You got to be able to tell these directors this is too much. I don't know what's happened in Hollywood where the studio head doesn't have the balls/power to tell these directors this film is too long and it needs to be cut down. Because if anything, there's how many movies have we seen that absolutely are that case? Almost everything. It looks like it needs to be cut down. I know, I get it. I get Jen. I get the Joe Jameson. I had to read it, but it's cool. It's cool. I'm good. All right, guys, I'll back tonight at about 8:30. Haven't decided which time we'll start. Get the alerts, get the updates, and we will do that tonight live. What happened to The Fall Guy? Big time autopsy on this, I'd argue, bomb here Universal has to deal with now. $125 million plus on the budget, plus the marketing. Guys, this is going to lose them a ton of cash. And I think this is maybe one of the things, the strikes, that's another thing we can talk about tonight. Great comment. We'll discuss it all coming up tonight on MMT. I'll see you back here 8:30 tonight, live from LA. Peace out. Enjoy your Sunday.